kind of lead off by telling you that this will be very difficult, this talk, because people are so quick to misinterpret. And I just want to say in advance that in no way, shape, or form am I in any way condoning using any kind of drugs, illegal or otherwise. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't use anything like that, and I certainly wouldn't encourage anybody to. However, on the other hand, if things are real and there's a reality out here, and I think it's very important to talk about it. But there are some people who will misread this, but it's certainly not intended that way. But I'm not, because of that, I am not going to avoid talking about something that's, to me, very, very important and very, very real. You see, in our three-dimensional existence, which we are, physical human people, we're limited to seeing or hearing those things that can be monitored by the three-dimensional physical brain. And it's very important that that's limited. Obviously, if we were able to see into a parallel universe, we'd also be seeing ourselves there. And we'd be watching what we're doing there and trying to, we got enough problems figuring out what we're doing here. And so it would make existing impossible. So we're very limited on what we know. I've brought you scientist after scientist telling you about the reality of parallel universes, the reality that you have another you, many of you, identical yous in different universes. And it's so hard for us to grasp something like that. But on the other hand, there seems to have been a design built into all of us to allow us to cross the line to the parallel side. And this is the question, and this is something that a lot of people are not aware of. But each one of us is carrying around within inside of ourselves an illegal drug. A drug which in our society is illegal, but which creation, God, however you want to phrase this, has seen fit to build into the brain, to be dispatched into our body. And the question would be, why? Why would you have a hallucinogenic built in to your body? I introduced you to a book some time ago called DMT. DMT stands for dimethyltryptamine. It's a hallucinogenic drug. And I introduced you to a book some time ago called DMT, The Spirit Molecule, and it's written by Rick Strassman, writer and medical doctor. A doctor's revolutionary research into the biology of near-death and mystical experience. Now, this is what he says, and I'll show you a picture of Rick Strassman. You'll see his background, and then I'll show you what he says. But this is him. He attended the Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University in the Bronx, New York, where he obtained his medical degree with honors in 1977. In 1984, he received lay ordination in a Western Buddhist order and co-founded and for several years administered a lay Buddhist meditation group associated with the same order. He has been a consultant to the United States Food and Drug Administration, National Institute on Drug Abuse, Veterans Administration Hospitals, Social Security Administration, and other state and local agencies. So the guy has credentials. You can't just look at somebody like this and say, well, he's off the wall. Well, no. And you have to understand also that what you hear tonight is not my opinion, because my opinion really is worthless. It's the opinions that I've been able to develop and to bring to you from very responsible, incredible people. Now, this is what he says. Rick Strassman, from 19 to 1995, conducted DEA, and that's Department of Environmental Administration. In other words, he conducted experiments which were approved by the United States government. He conducted DEA-approved clinical research at the University of New Mexico, in which he injected 60 volunteers with DMT. Now, DMT, which I said is dimethyltryptamine, is very important in our discussion tonight because DMT is secreted by the pineal gland of the brain. You have a hallucinogenic that is secreted into your body at certain periods of time. He injected 60 volunteers with DMT, one of the most powerful psychedelics known. His detailed account of those sessions and the extraordinarily riveting inquiry into the nature of the human mind and the therapeutic potential of psychedelics. DMT, a plant-derived chemical that is also manufactured by the human brain, consistently produced near-death and mystical experiences. Many volunteers reported convincing encounters with intelligent, non-human presences, especially aliens. Nearly all felt that the sessions were among the most profound experiences of their lives. Strassman's research connects DMT with the pineal gland, considered by Hindus to be the site of the seventh chakra, and by René Descartes to be the seat of the soul. DMT, the spirit molecule, makes the bold case that DMT, naturally released by the pineal gland, facilitates the soul's movement in and out of the body and is an integral part of the birth and death experience, as well as the highest states of meditation and even sexual transcendence. Strassman also believes that alien abduction experiences are brought on by accidental release of DMT. If used wisely, DMT could trigger a period of remarkable progress in the scientific exploration of the most mystical regions of the human mind and soul. Rick Strassman is currently Clinical Associate Professor of Psychiatry, University of New Mexico School of Medicine. Well, see, here's the situation. Rick Strassman, this doctor, has opened for discussion the possibility that it is the secretion of DMT into the brain that brings a person into contact with higher realms, alien realms, if you would. If you're a religious person, you'd say spiritual realms. It depends where you're coming from. People could pray, "Come, Holy Ghost," but if any kind of ghost comes into them, they'd be out the back door, as fast. Where do you want the door to be? They'd go right through it. So, at that point, though, a person is lifted above the three dimensions of physical life. And what they're going to see, all bets are off. Now, you have to say to yourself, I don't know. But why is this hallucinogenic, this psychedelic drug secreted into your body? For what purpose? Say, could the person, let's say the person who experiences this to a higher degree or whatever, goes into a parallel universe with people that we consider to be dead and starts talking to them? Could the person move into the realm of extraterrestrials? Who knows? But there must be a reason that a hallucinogenic is part of the physical makeup of human beings. And it is. There are doctors and scientists who are convinced that, when you go to bed, this is when most of the DMT is triggered, when you go into sleep, and off you go. Off you go into a whole other living experience someplace else. You'll have it tonight. But something has to be there that causes the brain to let go, and off you go into this experience. So my question would be, is that the reason that DMT is secreted into the brain so that you can have this higher experience, this transcendence? See, and are human beings, there's another question, are human beings who feel they have a spiritual encounter actually experiencing the excretion of DMT into their brain? I'm the Holy Spirit, whatever. So the question then is the concept of this extreme spiritual possession in which one is overwhelmed and starts shaking with a spiritual feeling that proclaims the baptism of the Holy Spirit, is actually an experience brought on by the drug DMT being activated in the brain by the pineal gland. See, now, as I said before when we started, a lot of people have problems, but the point is there has to be something that does this. There has to be some substance, some chemical substance that triggers these apparitions or visions or whatever it may be. So my question would be, are people who claim to be high on Jesus actually high on DMT? Now, as I said, it's an illegal substance. There are many illegal substances, but there's something about dimethyltryptamine or DMT that's different. And I wanted to show you what it is. Let's go on to the difference here. Dimethyltryptamine, also known as N,N-dimethyltryptamine, is a psychedelic tryptamine. Well, I said, well, what the heck does tryptamine mean? So we found out in the next one here. Tryptamine is the backbone for a group of compounds known collectively as tryptamines. This group includes many biologically active compounds, including neurotransmitters and hallucinogens. So here we have DMT, known to be intentionally triggered into the brain by creation, by nature, by God, and it's a hallucinogenic. So, in other words, there is a need for you to have hallucination. Now, is this need, for when you're sleeping? Well, obviously. That's, the dreams and so forth and so on are real experiences. Okay? And finally, it says, DMT is created in small amounts by the human body during normal metabolism by the enzyme tryptamine methyltransferase, whatever that is. So it's there. So there it is. DMT is different than some other hallucinogens that we're familiar with because we produce it inside of ourselves. So you're carrying it around with you. You are carrying a concealed drug. And it's a perfectly normal substance that the human body must have for whatever reason. And what other reason could there be than for you to be able to transcend this three-dimension world into another experience, into another universal experience? And that's the question. Why would the human body produce something that would have the effect of making one hallucinate? And ask yourself this. When a person gets into the position of dementia, is this actually a breakdown somewhere in the control over this pineal where it starts to pour this DMT into the body and they are hallucinating, but they're actually seeing things? And here we're saying, well, they're out of touch with reality, but maybe it's us who are out of touch with reality. Maybe the person they're talking to is really there, and it's us that can't see it.
Be careful, though.
Oh, wait, hold on. Go ahead.
It's all right. But by a so-called normal, you are hallucinating. The person knows, it says that is not a hallucination.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. What he's saying is that in a normal, whatever that is, in a normal situation, the person would know that they're not hallucinating. But of course, this wouldn't be a normal situation. This wouldn't be a normal situation at all because something would have had to change in the physical and the electrical structure of the brain for this DMT to be put into the brain in such a way that it would cause this person to hallucinate. And of course, the person wouldn't know that it's not normal because the whole structure, the whole brain structure is different. They're talking to somebody who's there. Now, I'm quote-unquote normal. I can't see that person. They see the person, they talk to the person, and everything is very normal. But what the point is here is, what the heck is normal? And how do we, when we act, is it normal Or would it be normal for a human being at a higher elevation of the mind to have the capacity to enter into higher realms of reality? You see, because what we consider normal, what we consider traditional, is very violent, is very, very suspect of anything, and it's only normal if we see these things in our church setting. But if somebody else sees these things in their church setting, then it's a cult. Well, there is a chemical mechanism that takes a person into another dimension of reality that they cannot enter in what we call the natural three-dimension state. And that's what Albert was talking about. When you're in the natural three-dimension normal state that we all exist in, we can't enter into that. We can't. But we're talking about those situations where people do enter into it, when there is a change in the brain. So then we're saying, well, what is it that would allow even a person in that state to start seeing and talking to people? And is it the secretion of this DMT? And would that then make that person they're talking to real? To them, certainly it is. But let's go on. Let's go on. DMT containing plants, that's where it comes from. It comes from a plant, externally. Now, we have it built in, but it comes from a plant. Are commonly used in several South America shamanic practices. It is usually one of the main active constituents of the drink ayahuasca. Ayahuasca. Okay? All right. Several speculative and as yet untested hypotheses suggest that endogenous DMT, produced in the human brain, is involved in certain psychological and neurological states. As DMT is naturally produced in small amounts in the brain, some believe it plays a role in promoting the visual effects of natural dreaming and also near-death experiences and other mystical states. A biochemical mechanism for this was proposed by the medical researcher J.C. Callaway, who suggested in 1988 that DMT might be connected with visual dream phenomena, where brain DMT levels are periodically elevated to induce visual dreaming and possibly other natural states of mind. So, I mean, there has, but here's the point. And let's not lose the point. The point is, if, like Albert was talking about, we're normal, we're natural, we're regular three-dimensional people, why the heck do we have a built-in hallucinogenic? It's only for one reason. That you see things that other people can't see. When does it kick in? It certainly kicks in when you go to sleep. Because when you go to sleep, you don't go to sleep. Your body goes to sleep, you go out. And you go out on one of these trips that this is referring to. That's a very interesting thing. And the important thing to me is, of course we don't take drugs. Don't take anything. But the point is to try to figure out what in the heck is going on here. You know? And you can track this stuff. I mean, you heard of people in the Old Testament and the New Testament getting stoned, and you always thought it was people throwing rocks at them. Well, that takes on a whole new meaning, doesn't it? Oh, they were stoned. Oh, no, that's terrible. Well, not really. But there are two interesting statements here. One is that DMT is one of the main constituents of the shamanic drink ayahuasca. The second statement is that of medical researchers who suggest that DMT elevates in the dream state and may be connected with the visual dream phenomena and other natural states of mind. In other words, when your body shuts down, your brain disconnects from your body. That's what happens when you sleep. And then there is this elevation of this hallucinogenic, and all of a sudden you are in some kind of wild or, different type of experience. Some of them are, well, you know what you experience when you sleep. So what is being said here is that having a hallucination, seeing things, and talking with people that other people like us in the normal state cannot see, maybe natural, not normal. Not normal, but natural. It has to be. Because this hallucinogenic is created and does come secreted by the pineal gland into the brain. When we say such people are out of touch, we don't, see, we're really out of touch with reality. I'll tell you why we are the ones out of touch with reality, because we don't understand. I mean, it's like you go to the drugstore and you buy all the stuff off the shelves and everything, but you have no idea that much of it was made by some guy with a loincloth smoking a pipe around a bonfire in the middle of the Amazon jungle. How the heck? See, that's what, there was a guy named Jeremy Narby. Jeremy Narby wrote a book called The Cosmic Serpent. And this is it. This is the book. The Cosmic Serpent, DNA and the Origins of Knowledge by Jeremy Narby. And Jeremy Narby couldn't understand. He said, wait a minute. They take a plant here because they want to cure some disease. And then they have to go all the way through the jungle, all around everywhere, and they find another plant over here. Well, if they just use this plant, it won't work. But when they combine it with this plant, it does work. So Jeremy Narby said, how the heck do you know which plant to go to in the jungle to combine the two of them? And the shaman said, the plants tell us. Oy. So he says, well, I don't know. I don't know. And this all turns out to be about DNA because these are the visions that the shamans had under this ayahuasca, whatever they call it. Ayahuasca. That's the visions that they had. The knowledge that Narby was seeking, how they knew. And the shaman said, the plants tell us. And they would ingest this ayahuasca and hallucinate, and the hallucinations would show them which plants to combine in order to cure a certain ailment. So he tried it. Jeremy Narby tried the ayahuasca himself in his hallucinations. He saw twisted serpents and winding stairs and came to the startling conclusion that it was DNA in the plant from the ayahuasca that communicated with the DNA in the shaman that told them which plants to combine. And it wasn't something in there saying, listen, go up to see the tree over there on the left, they're going to pull out now. They just knew, say. They just knew. And so he did that experience himself. And this is where he came to the starting conclusion that all of these winding stairs and all of these twisted serpents turned out to be DNA. And he knew, and he was able to then create the book and the hypothesis that it is the DNA in the plants that communicate with the DNA in the shamans. In other words, the hallucination was providing a glimpse into a reality that is far deeper than any of us can go under normal circumstances. There's no way. I mean, Jeremy Narby has all kinds of degrees, and he goes to colleges, and he does all this stuff. He didn't know. He had to go to some guy that didn't even have a pair of pants on, sitting around a bonfire with a pipe in his mouth. But he knew. See? And so what do we say? Oh, well, we're not going to take any more of the medicine and the drugstore. You know, all of these Eckarts and all of it, they send people to the Amazon to consult with these shamans. So what are you going to do? Stop because they're high when they find this stuff out? So the hallucination was providing a glimpse into a reality that is far deeper than one can go under normal circumstances. And that trip into reality became possible with this external DMT. Now we're going into that part that I know, can get touchy with people. It's one thing if your brain secretes DMT, well, that's, what are you going to do about that? It's another thing to start taking this stuff. I'm not talking about you or me taking this stuff. I'm talking about an anthropologist who had to find out. And he did. And so what he says then, and basically what he found out was that this was work in the cosmic field And he received a much clearer picture of the reasons why a hallucination may have such a significant impact on human life. Can you imagine people are healed of diseases that comes as a result of medicine that was made by people who were high on some drug? So what are you going to say? Oh, they shouldn't do that anymore? I'll show you a picture of Jeremy Narby. This is a picture of Jeremy Narby, whose work in The Cosmic Serpent has given a much clearer definition of how these hallucinogenics, under controlled circumstances, can have a tremendous effect. See, here's a situation where an explanation of why this hallucinogenic drug DMT is produced in the human brain. As a result of the ingested form of DMT, people from the jungles of Amazon have created cures for a number of diseases. And drug companies send people over there to find out what's the latest. Now keep in mind that what the shaman is using is a natural substance from a plant, which obviously stimulates the natural substance from the brain, giving them the ability to discern which plants to combine. You see what I'm trying to say to you is, it's one thing to go looking for the Holy Spirit, and it's one thing, Holy Ghost and the angels and the spirits. It's another thing to come to grips with what the heck this is. What is this? What is this that people who have seen God, or people who have seen angels, or people who have seen all this stuff? I mean, where is that coming from? And is it coming from a secretion within their own brain of this hallucinogenic? If it wasn't there, then, I have nothing to say. But it is. And the whole thing becomes very curious to me when so much of our culture is built around a feeling of holiness to the people of the ancient times. And I'll tell you, obviously, if you read the Bible or read these other books, these people were hallucinating. Bible stories are of people hallucinating. They were high. But at the same time, they were discerning things that are beyond the three dimensions in the strange realm that we call spirit. Oh, a guy sees a serpent with 10 heads and 6 horns and all of this stuff. What is he? What kind of trip is he on? Well, we can't. That's the Bible. Certainly. But what we're finding out about healing diseases and curing things, they come from another dimension. And obviously somebody that's sitting down talking to a snake or talking to a goat or opening the oceans and all of this stuff is on something. And it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means, can we become adult enough to understand it? When we look at what they found, that which the human brain can only provide to us when it secretes this hallucinogenic. I'm in no way, as I said 1,000,000 times, recommend taking anything, but I'm simply stating what the facts are and what scientists do. And if you look again at Jeremy Narby's book, The Cosmic Serpent, what does it say? DNA and the origins of knowledge. We see the serpent of the hallucination, and next to it, the twisted helix, which is the pattern of DNA. The basis of life. The book of life. And it was the hallucination of twisted serpents and winding stairs that enlightened Jeremy Narby to the fact that the shamans were being instructed by DNA. Now, it brings me to this study with a deeper appreciation of the reality of the nature of the pineal gland or the single eye, and the enlightenment into the spheres of what we call spirit or other dimensions. And there's another news report that has been released on the same subject. Interesting. This is a guy by the name of Francis Crick. Let's read about him. Francis Crick lived from June 1916 to July 2004, was an English molecular biologist, physicist, and neuroscientist who is most noted for being one of the co-discoverers of the structure of DNA in 1953. I mean, yeah, the poor guy's dead, so I was going to say, if you got an argument, call him. Well, you can't do that, but anyhow. But I mean, I'm not here telling you this is my idea. Okay, let's go. He, James Watson, and Maurice Wilkins were jointly awarded the 1962 Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine for their discoveries concerning the molecular structure of nucleic acids and its significance for information transfer in living material. I would say he's got credibility, and we should listen to him. Or you can listen to the pastor, whatever turns you on. So, how outstanding was this guy? Let me show you what Caius College in Cambridge, England did with one of the windows in their college hall in his memory. Oh, wow. There it is. And if you read it there, you'll see in memory of F.H. Crick. All right? That's what they did. The story on what happened the day that Crick discovered the DNA double helix is something I want to share with you. It's pretty interesting. Crick, see, I knew you were something other than that.
You didn't know what.
Okay. The abrasive and unorthodox Crick and his brilliant American co-researcher James Watson famously celebrated their eureka moment in March 1953 by running from the now legendary Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge to the nearby Eagle Pub, where they announced over pints of bitter that they had discovered the secret of life. And he had. And he really had. But there is something about Mr. Francis Crick that I also have to share with you. Nobel Prize genius, Crick was high on LSD when he discovered the secret of life. Now, what are you going to say? He shouldn't have been doing that? You want to take the next one? Francis Crick, the Nobel Prize-winning father of modern genetics, was under the influence of LSD when he first deduced the double helix structure of DNA nearly 50 years ago. And you put this together with Jeremy Narby. Now, that doesn't mean, because if I see snakes, they're snakes. But I'm talking about brilliant people and something inside of us that takes us to another dimension, and we begin to become enlightened. Look at the next one, Francis Crick. Crick, who died at age 88, told a fellow scientist that he often used small doses of LSD, then an experimental drug used in psychotherapy, to boost his powers of thought. He said it was LSD, not the Eagles warm beer, that helped him to unravel the structure of DNA, the discovery that won him the Nobel Prize. He is admitting that he won the Nobel Prize because he was high on drugs. I mean, it's like I'm the same way. That right now you're just standing with your mouth open. Nobody ever tells you this stuff. Nobody ever says anything. Go on to the next one. Despite his establishment image, Crick was a devotee of novelist Aldous Huxley, whose accounts of his experiments with LSD and another hallucinogen, mescaline, in the doors of perception in heaven and hell became cult texts for the hippies of the 60s and 70s. In the late 60s, Crick was a founder member of Soma, a legalized cannabis group named after the drug in Huxley's novel Brave New World. He even put his name to a famous letter to the Times in 1967 calling for a reform in the drug laws. So, they go to the next one. Dick Kemp told me he met Francis Crick at Cambridge. Crick had told him that some Cambridge academics used LSD in tiny amounts as a thinking tool to liberate them from preconceptions and let their genius wander freely to new ideas. Crick told him he had perceived the double helix shape while on LSD. So did Jeremy Norby. So the person considered the most important mind in the discovery of the structure of DNA, the Book of Life, admitted to being under LSD when he made the discovery. So he takes a place alongside of Jeremy Norby and many other scientists who made their discoveries, which turned out to be a boon to science and to human existence while hallucinating. So his hallucinations will probably wind up one day in curing all of the diseases that are known to man. Because he's seeing into another dimension. He's seeing into another universe. And all the rest of us can see as far as the wall. And that's as far as we should see. But when you have things like this, these are people whose minds have to be set free because, there's a million people to stop scientists and stop people from progressing to where they have to go. And that's why you never see or hear about them. I mean, Paul Steinhardt at Princeton University will say to you, absolutely, parallel universes are real, and there are many of you with your same name and your same parents and your same identity living in these universes all over creation. And everybody would say, oh, well, he's crazy. But he's not. He's the Einstein Emeritus Professor at Princeton University. So again, one has to ask the question, is this why DMT, an illegal hallucinogenic, is built in the human brain? What is so interesting to me is when you look at the list of people who have reached such pinnacles of fame in helping others, while yet these people have admittedly took drugs. In other words, so many of us have been helped by people who are hallucinating. Let me give you a look at some of them. Renowned scientist at Harvard, Professor Stephen Jay Gould, died in May 2002 of lung cancer. Gould was the author of many books on science and evolution, including The Mismeasure of Man and the massive 1,400-page opus, The Structure of Evolutionary Theory, published shortly after his death. While many obituaries marked Gould's passing, few mentioned that Gould had been using marijuana since at least 1982. Here's one you'll know. I'm sure this is a very famous guy to you, Carl Sagan. Astronomer Carl Sagan, who was a regular user of marijuana from the early 60s until his death in 96. Like Gould, Sagan was also best known for his ability to explain his complex ideas to the general public. Sagan was close friends with Harvard professor Dr. Lester Greenspoon, a leading advocate of decriminalization. In an anonymous essay which Sagan wrote for Greenspoon's book Marijuana Reconsidered, Sagan explained how cannabis used had on occasion inspired him to produce scientific papers which one later acclaimed. What do? And all the people were, oh, you see him on television? Here's Carl Sagan, and he just wrote this magnificent book, and everyone, it's unrevealed animal, and he was hiding a kite. Look what he says here. Sagan disputed the myth of the pot high that the insights achieved while stoned are illusory. I am convinced that this is an error, wrote Sagan, and that the devastating insights achieved when high are real insights. The main problem is putting these insights in a form acceptable to the quite different self that we are when we're down the next day. One classic anecdote from the mid-1980s shows Sagan's devotion to the inspirational effects of kind buds. Greenspoon had received some unsolicited buds from an admirer, and he shared the high-potency joints with Sagan and his wife, Anne Droyan. One evening, afterwards, Sagan said, Lester, I know you've only got one left, but could I have it? I've got some serious work to do tomorrow, and I could really use it. You had to come here to find this out about Carl Sagan, didn't you?
The public wants to know.
Does that lessen what a brilliant astronomer he was? Of course not. Here's another brilliant physicist. Richard Feynman was an extraordinary intellect who revolutionized modern physics. During his astounding career, he helped design the atomic bomb, created a Nobel Prize-winning theory of quantum electrodynamics, became a skilled safecracker, and exposed the flaws which had led to the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Feynman was a brilliant scientist long before he sampled marijuana and LSD while in his mid-50s, but he did claim to have learned from the mind-expanding experiences. Richard Feynman, a very, very famous physicist. Here's another guy, Curry Mullis, a scientific luminary who has been public about the benefits to be gained from mind-expanding drugs as Curry Mullis. Mullis won the 1993 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for developing a now commonly used technique called the polymerase chain reaction, which allows scientists to quickly and easily duplicate segments of DNA. In his 1998 autobiography, Dancing Naked in the Minefield, Mullis claimed, "I think I might have been stupid in some respect if it weren't for my psychedelic experiences." But what do you do? I mean, it's not that he didn't do anything. He discovered the polymerase chain reaction, which allowed scientists to easily duplicate segments of DNA. What kind of thing eventually down the road is going to be attributed to his work? And it was in a different dimension. Now, this was a surprise. This would be a surprise for Joan. Do the next one. Dr. Andrew Weil is possibly the world's best-known naturopath. He is a Harvard Medical School graduate, also has a Harvard AB degree in biology, and is an internationally recognized expert on medicinal herbs, mind-body interactions, and alternative medicine. Weil is open about his past and present use of illegal substances, claiming, "I think I've tried about every drug and chocolate to morphine." Weil claims that there is an innate need for humans to alter consciousness and that there is no such thing as good drugs and bad drugs, merely that some individuals have good or bad relationships with these substances. But here is another statement of interest. You can bring his name down again, okay? Weil's first book was The Natural Mind, published in 1971. In it, he writes about the advantages of stone thinking in understanding health and diagnosing illnesses. Weil has even been honored with having a psychedelic mushroom named in his honor. Cycle B Weil was discovered and named in 1995, and there it is. Oh, I mean, you know, but he doesn't come on television and tell you what to take and say, "Look, I'm stoned, but I mean..." So all this is going on. This is like, you know, it's like George Bush and everybody's in the back room. Nobody knows what... George... Where do you see this one? This is too good. Where do you see this one? In the early 1880s, the cocaine alkaloid was first extracted from cocoa leaves, and some studies were beginning into its medical use. Sigmund Freud. Now, I mean, you know, whatever you think of the guy's brilliant mind, he was intrigued by the drug and was the first to study and use it. I take very small doses of it regularly, and against depression and against indigestion, and with the most brilliant success. Freud was very enthusiastic about the benefits of cocaine. In his 1884 book, Ober Coca, Freud wrote of the exhilaration and lasting euphoria produced by cocaine, which in no way differs from the normal euphoria of the healthy person. This result is enjoyed without any of the unpleasant after effects that follow exhilaration brought about by alcohol. But this is Sigmund Freud. These people go down in history. But this is a letter to his girlfriend that I had to share with you that sums up the point concerning brilliant minds who have created so much for civilization while they were stoned. Look at this from Sigmund Freud to his girlfriend. In an oft-quoted 1884 letter to his fiancée, Martha Bernice, Freud wrote, "Woe to you, my princess, when I come. I will kiss you quite red and feed you till you are plump. And if you are forward, you shall see who is the stronger, a gentle little girl who doesn't eat enough or a big wild man who has cocaine in his body."
That's a good one, Bill. That's a real good one. That is funny.
But these are classic people. These are not, you know, and you had to come here to Forked River to find out that, yeah. You think all these people ever do is study and write and study. It's not true. Obviously. So now there were so many others. There's Carl Jung, who was a brilliant psychoanalyst. But the question is, what do you do with their brilliance when you find out it came from them being stoned? And when you understand that the psychedelic drug DMT is built into your body and brain, you say, for what purpose? Does God want you stoned? Are these brilliant people benefactors of having crossed into another dimension to see and understand the wonders of reality that we never see or understand? And what about all of the Bible writers? Oh, it's so easy to pick up the Bible. Oh, we saw angels. We talked with animals. Oh, the walking on the water and flying through the sky and all of this stuff and 10-headed monsters. Was everybody in that book stoned? Is that what it means when it says? I think most people understand the dangers of using drugs. And I didn't give you a list of people down the street. I showed you people who have eminent credentials, who you had no idea did this. But they have contributed much to civilization. And they say that they gained this knowledge from these experiences. And so for the rest of us, we just read about them. Except for the fact that when you go to sleep tonight, whether you like it or not, you're going on a trip. You're going to get high. And so the danger of using these things, which is real, does not take away the question of why so many people considered as genius use them in order to open up startling revelations of reality, of life, and of healing. And knowing that the drug DMT comes from the pineal gland of the brain, the single eye, then it makes this question or this statement of Jesus of so much more import. When he says in Matthew 6:22, if your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light. The single eye is the pineal gland of the brain, which fills you with DMT, which is hallucinogenic. Is that what he meant? Oh, you say, well, people, they don't see these things anymore. But there's a reason for that, too. You know why people do not have the effects of natural DMT from the pineal gland? Because we're all on drugs of one kind or another. We're all taking this kind of stuff or that kind of stuff. Everybody is. How do you know? And we have to. I have to take blood pressure medicine and other stuff. How do I know that doesn't interfere with that other drug? I don't know. But in those days, back in the 2,000, 3,000 years ago, they didn't have that. In those days, 2,000 and 3,000 years ago, they didn't have all the electrical things going through the ether. They didn't have television. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have radios. And they didn't have radar and all this stuff. This whole room was filled with all kinds of signals flying through here. People talking, football players, baseball players, elephants, just goes one now. Elephants running through here and all this stuff. And all you'd have to do is get a little television set, rabbit ears, turn it on, and there it is. They didn't have that then. In the early pages of the Bible, it says God is light. The pineal is the light receptor of the body. And it secretes the drug DMT, which opens one to a different dimension. And back in the book of Genesis, Jacob's wrestling with an angel. What the heck was he on? And you know what he said? I have seen God face to face. And you know what he named the place where he saw God? Peniel. Look it up in the book of Genesis. But he did. There's nothing anyone can do about this. They can't remove the DMT from the body. They can't declare the body illegal because it's harboring an illegal substance. What are you going to do? So we have seen the records of geniuses who said that much of their brilliance was because of them using drugs. We have seen the fact that God, for whatever reason, built into the human body this drug called DMT and placed it in the pineal gland or single eye and then had Jesus tell us all to activate the single eye. The point seems to be so that we can move into a different dimension during a dream sequence. In that sequence, we see things that no one else can see. We talk with people that no one else can talk with. And we do things that no one else can do. And as long as our body is asleep, you're free to do these things. But if we awake and do them, then we're declared, in trouble. It opens an entire new approach to the subject of UFOs and aliens. Are the people who see these things influenced by either a natural or an unnatural drug? I don't know. The author Terence McKenna has a statement on the subject which is interesting, we should look at. He says, author Terence McKenna has used DMT and feels that right here and now, one quanta away, there is raging a universe of active intelligence that is transhuman, hyperdimensional, and extremely alien. What is driving religious feeling today is a wish for contact with this other universe. The aliens seen while using DMT present themselves with information that is not drawn from the personal history of the individual. I don't know anything about what he's saying. I'm only telling you what he said. As somebody who has used this and as a writer and so forth and so on. But more of us would rather, go to church, kneel down, sing a song, put some money in the pot, and leave. Check our brains at the door, pick them up, and we go home. And dare not question, dare not say any of this stuff. Don't think, don't talk, don't communicate. No matter how it may sound. Let us just stay in our little cubby holes and not know about these things. And the amazing thing, that when these guys talk about these experiences, this is what billions of people go to church every week to accomplish. Oh, Holy Spirit, come and fill me. Oh, come down, let me see your grace and all. That's what they're asking for. You could make $1 million. Just stand and sell the stuff out the doors. They go out and say, here, their prayers are answered. A universe that is transhuman, hyperdimensional, and extremely alien. Is that why DMT is in the human body? And obviously, without something, it's impossible for the human psyche to transcend this three-dimensional reality. So it's built in, and we can't interfere with it. It really becomes a predicament. But let's look quickly at the pineal gland of the brain here, and DMT. DMT is naturally produced in small quantities in the human brain, and it has been hypothesized that DMT is produced in the pineal gland of the brain. The pineal gland appears in the developing human fetus around 49 days after conception. 49 days after conception. I'll show you something from the Bible. And you shall, Leviticus 25:8, and you shall number 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7 Sabbaths shall be 49 years. Leviticus 23:15, and you shall count from the day after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete, which is 49 days. And then at the 49th day, there is a wave offering. And you remember, if you were here some time ago, I talked to you about a quantum physicist who says that that wave is produced by a descending photon, and it requires a wave back from us, from the pineal gland of the brain, and when the two wave connects, then an attachment to the cosmos is made. And here it's talking about the same thing. Here it says the pineal gland has the stuff at 49 days, and here the wave offering is made of the arrival in 49 days in the Bible. 49 years, 49 days. Our Holy Bible. And you tell me if this guy was on something. Above him were seraphs, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy is the Lord, the whole earth is full of his glory. At the sound of their voices, the doorpost and the threshold shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. Is this guy on something? Of course he is. And what was you know what they used in those days? Mandrakes. That was the stuff. I'll tell you something. There was a cartoon wrote about that many, many years ago. It's called Mandrake the Magician. Remember? There's some old folks here. Well, let's wind it up. Does that mean that the people who wrote the Bible, especially things like Revelation, were high or stoned when they wrote them? And if they were, does that make them any less reliable than Sigmund Freud or Carl Sagan or Carl Jung? Or does it make them just as reliable? I've got a lot more stuff in this, and as we experiment with thinking. What?
You used the word experiment.
No, I don't mean experiment, but I mean experiment with our thinking and our discussions, you know. It's a real good area to step into, because if you really wish to find out what God and angels and spirits are all about, this is where it is. Not that you take anything. You don't have to take anything. But just that you understand you are an electrical chemical person, and the electrical chemical changes that come about are built in and do open to you at times a communion into that parallel universe. Think about this one. We'll see.